We begin with Councilman R. Daniel Lavelle, our committee chair on public safety services. Councilman, can we take 218, 219, and 220 separately?
Sure.
Thank you. Those other ones under... No. Yes, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Lavelle presents Bill number 1525, report of the Committee on Public Safety Services for March 27, 2019, with an affirmative recommendation. Bill number 1196, resolution establishing the Stop the Violence Initiative to reduce both police officer-related violence and proximity-related violence in the city of Pittsburgh.
Take that one separately? Wait, hold on, Madam Clerk. Can we take, do you want to take 1196 separately first and then take the gun bills?
Yes, please.
Yes?
Yes.
You're the chair, Councilman, if that you wish. Okay. All right, so then let's start with 1196. You've heard the reading and the title of the bill, 1196. Is there further discussion on the bill, beginning with... Sir? No? Councilman? No. Okay. Seeing no discussion, 1196 is ready for final action, and all in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye when their names are called. Those opposed will vote no. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll just on 1196?
Reverend Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Coghill.
Aye.
Ms. Gross.
Aye.
Mrs. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Mrs. Kell-Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger. Mr. Kraus, President.
Aye.
Ayes 8, no 0. What was that for? 1196.
Good. Okay. Then thank you, Madam Clerk. The bill, having received the legally required number of votes, then is finally passed. Now, under our Public Safety Services Committee, Madam Clerk, may I please have the purpose of 1218, 1219, and 1220?
Bill 1218, ordinance, amending and supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances by repealing Chapter 607, firearms, ammunition, and other weapons in its entirety, and enacting and adding Article 11, weapons, to the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances in order to meet the public safety needs of residents. Bill number 1219, an ordinance, amending and supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances by enacting and adding Article 11, weapons, Chapter 1104, prohibition on the use of certain accessories, ammunition, and modifications, in Chapter 1105, authorized prohibition of large capacity magazines. Bill number 1220, an ordinance amending and supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances at Title 6, Conduct Article 11, weapons, by adding Chapter 1106, prevention of extreme risk to children, and Chapter 1107, extreme risk protection orders.
Yes, all three, please, Madam Clerk. I'm trying to get the Councilwoman on the phone.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. So you have heard the reading and the title of Bills 1218, 1219, 1220. Further discussion on the bills begin with Councilman O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. President. As everybody can see in front of them, there are technical amendments. So I would like to make a motion to amend by substitution.
Councilwoman?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion on the motion to amend? Councilwoman Harris.
Yeah. Do you want to go through this? It's pretty thick for this morning.
They're all relatively the same changes. It's the entire bill. There are just capitalizing ammunition, large capacity magazines, and as well as strengthening the severability amendment, the severability clause, but they're all very technical and changes nothing substantial to the actual bills that we passed the other day.
Is that one or all three?
All three, because when you change one title of verbiage, you have to capitalize it in all three. So that's why there's a lot of them there.
I will be voting no on the amendments today because they're unconstitutional.
Do we have further discussion on the amendment on the bills? Okay, seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
No.
1 no, 2 no's on the amendments. Okay, thank you. Councilman O'Connor, as amended.
Oh, thank you very much. So I want to thank everybody we've had a long couple of months on these bills, but I want to thank all council members. As I mentioned the other day, I think we're all on the same page that we want to stop gun violence. A couple of us are just have a difference of opinion on how to get there. I also want to thank a number of people in the audience today: Moms Demand Action, Ceasefire, PA, volunteers from the community, the Alderdike students that couldn't be with us today. And then I also want to thank Councilwoman Strasburger, who gave me a statement that she would like me to read on her behalf. From Councilwoman Strasburger: I'm proud to have been a part of authorizing these ordinances that rein in the use of assault weapons and certain firearm accessories, protect Pittsburgh's children from the dangers of firearms, fund anti-violence and group violence intervention initiatives, help to address suicide, family violence, and group violence in our community, and increase public safety in our neighborhoods, public places, places of worship, and other institutions. I am under no illusion about the limits of these ordinances. This cannot be the end of our work. Certainly, it's not for me. I look forward to building on the progress of passing these ordinances and continue to create a more peaceful and safer Pittsburgh. She would like to thank her council colleagues as well as the mayor on these bills. So that is from Councilwoman Strasburger. Again, I want to thank everybody for their support and their hard work on these bills, especially our staffers as well as the clerk's office.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Further discussion on the bills then with Councilwoman Harris.
At first, I'd like my comments brought forward from last Wednesday's meeting and any other comments I have made. If we were the state and the federal government, we could vote on these. But not being the state or the federal government, and it's very clear in the state law that only the state can vote on these, and all it's going to bring us is lawsuits. It's a shame, but even if you try putting this in, we're not going to be able to protect our children because the guns are lost or stolen. What we could have done is did a resolution asking the state to work on these bills and the federal government, but that's not what we have here today. And this piece will sit, well, it won't just sit, there'll be lawsuits, and the bill will sit with Bill from 1993, where the same action was tried. The only thing we should be doing is asking the state and the federal government to do something other than to put a bill in that's very meaningless and will not serve the residents of the city of Pittsburgh, because we do not have the right to change any laws on guns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Yes, Councilwoman Kell Smith.
Yeah, I made a lot of comments last week and over this course, but I want to also congratulate and thank Councilman O'Connor, because he's given everyone else credit, but he really has done a lot of work on these bills and really tried to work with council members to get us all on the same page. And I'm sorry that I cannot be there for these bills, but I don't take my oath of office lightly, and I don't take people's rights lightly either. And one of the things I have mentioned from the very beginning that was disturbing to me is that these types of bills disproportionately affect the African American and Latino communities if they're enforced. And I know we're not going to enforce these bills, but the message that we're sending to the people that are shot weekly in this city, to me, is not a good message. And so I think that while I have very strong feelings in that area, I think that Councilman O'Connor has been a great leader in this and working with all of council members. I think that, his staff has done a tremendous job trying to add amendments and do certain things. And I mean, it's correct. It takes a lot of courage to stand up and do something that you believe in. I believe that, for me, I believe that we should have done something a long time ago when I thought that we had some opportunity to do so, to address the violence in the predominantly minority communities, years ago, and yet we've seen so many homicides since then. And as I said before, we had a very different reaction after the Tree of Life than we have to the homicides that occur in the city on a regular basis. Although I have voted for bills in the past, we saw that they were not enforced. We saw that we know that we cannot do this. I think we could have accomplished all that these bills now accomplish, now that they've been whittled down and amended so much. I think we could have accomplished all this in a resolution without causing a lawsuit to the city, and made a statement as well. But I think that we have to remember that when we're making statements, when people are shot and killed, the people are shot and killed in the city on a regular basis. And it shouldn't just be when one horrific tragedy occurs. It's a tragedy, whether it's one person, 11 people, 2 people, whatever. It's a tragedy. And so I'd love to go to Harrisburg. I'd love to work with you on these bills. I've worked in the past and voted in the past on similar, on gun bills. But I'm going to vote no today. But I do want to thank Councilman O'Connor for his great leadership in this and his work. I mean, he really was outstanding.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Councilman Coghill.
Yes, I guess first and foremost, I guess I would ask Madam Clerk to remove my name from the bills, being that I'm not going to support it. I guess that would just be the natural course, right? So let's make that official. I think Councilman O'Connor says it best. We all of us here, we may agree or disagree in which method to approach it, but we all agree in gun control in some form or another. And, I've said mostly everything I needed to say about it. And, again, I want to congratulate everybody for their hard work in, approaching this issue. It's not an easy issue to deal with. It comes with a lot of challenges. But I also would like to extend an offer or an invitation to Kim Stolfer, Sam DeMarco, and the doctors who are at the table, for those of us who will not be involved in a lawsuit, to meet up in Harrisburg. And I'd love to see where they're going to meet us. And if it's just about controlling or, getting the mental illness laws under control, if that's the only thing they're coming to the table with, I'd say just stay home, because, that's not sufficient. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Further discussion from members? Okay, I would only add that I would like to correct a few statements that were made. In 1993, while Jack Wagner was here on council, and I forget exactly how that vote went down, there was an assault weapons ban that was put in. And it was ultimately overturned by the state, or at least the state put legislation in place saying that we didn't have the authority to do that. And so the idea that somehow law has existed in state for all time saying that we cannot do that is factual. It's not factual. And the fact that the city did take a stand previously, we did have an assault weapons ban on the books. The state retaliated by saying we didn't have the authority to do that. In the 12 years that I've been here on council, I have worked diligently with Ceasefire and a number of other organizations to take our cause to the state and to ask the state to act. And in 12 years, there's been no action by the state. I remember a few years back, we had a city employee that was murdered while on the job on Birmingham Street in Carrick. And he was murdered the day that one of our Western Pennsylvania delegation was actually on the floor of the House arguing to support the Punish Towns bill that would put us in great harm and great jeopardy, that if we took local action to protect our citizenry. So the idea that somehow we can take this to the state, when what I have seen is they have actively worked against us to help us to protect our citizenry, I think is not helpful. I applaud the courage of this council. I applaud the courage of Councilman O'Connor and Councilwoman Strasburger. I applaud Councilman Lavelle, Councilwoman Gross, Councilman Burgess for the courage to stand up and to say enough is finally enough. With that, Madam Clerk, may we please call the roll on bills 1218, 1219, and 1220.
Reverend Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Coghill.
No.
Mrs. Gross.
Aye.
Mrs. Harris.
No.
Mr. Lavelle.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Mrs. Kell Smith.
No.
Mrs. Strasburger.
Aye.
President Kroos.
Aye.
6 ayes, 3 nays.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The bills then, having received the legally required number of votes, have finally passed. Our next committee is our Committee on Public Works Services, and our chair... I am going to ask for order in the chamber, please. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask for order. I am going to ask for order in the chamber.